everyone, welcome back to my channel and also welcome if you are new here. I hope you like what you see and will subscribe for future videos. For today's video we have a eyeshadow palette review, and that is a review of the Makeup Revolution Emily edit, which was in collaboration with the YouTuber Emily Noel 83. This was released on the 22nd of August and I did actually order this on the day of release. There was so much demand for it that my order could not actually be fulfilled straight away, and I did have to wait a good 10 days for it to arrive. I ordered direct from Makeup Revolution. If I would have ordered from Superdrug, it probably would have been the same story as well. I did finally get my hands on it and I've been testing it pretty much every day since it arrived in order to form an opinion to be able to give my full review on it, and also because I just enjoy playing with eyeshadow palettes. For those of you who don't know, which I'm sure isn't many of you, Emily Noel 83 is a YouTuber who has just shy of 1 million subscribers at last count, and I've been subscribed to her channel for a good year or so now and I absolutely love her videos, her style of videos, her warmth, and really respect and trust her opinion. So when I seen that she was bringing out something with Makeup Revolution, it had to be an eyeshadow palette, and it was in fact two that she brought out. She brought out the Needs and the Wants palettes, and the one I have here is the Wants palette. The Needs palette is a eyeshadow and also a face palette, but I wasn't overly interested in that one as it was too neutral toned. I have a lot of those shades in my collection already, but this was one that I was desperate to get my hands on because to me the shades just looked so unique and different to anything else that I had in my collection. So this is what the palette looks like. It's quite a hefty palette, quite heavy. Doesn't feel cheap in the slightest. Wouldn't think that it was a drugstore brand because it does feel expensive. It is this gorgeous plastic peach with rose gold writing on it. It contains 24 shades, which are here. And each pan size is 0.03 ounces or 0.85 grams. So quite a lot of eyeshadow in here. And this palette retails for £15 or $20 in the US, which I think just for the size of it is great value as well. What I will do is I will give you a sort of brief overview of the palette. I will then go through each shade and give my opinion on it. Also then tell you about the 5 or 6 looks I created that I documented and did before and after photos in most cases, and then just give you my general conclusion on the palette. So sort of first impressions, and as I was working my way through testing the palette, I did notice that a few of the matte shades had a bit of kick up, nothing major, not really an issue, and some of the shimmer shades did have some fallout, but again not a lot. I have tried much worse, nothing that a quick swipe away wouldn't get rid of, so that to me was great for the price. Pigmentation wise, you're not going to get high-end pigmentation with this, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. All the shades in this palette are completely buildable and they are pigmented. It's not that the first swipe you don't get any colour, because you do, but it's a nice amount of pigmentation, especially for some of the darker shades in here, because to me dark shades are quite intimidating, and that first swipe, if there's too much colour, for me personally, I think, oh no, I can't do the shade, and just wipe it off. Even the black in here, which I have only tried once, isn't too intimidating of a black because it is buildable, which I think is really great. This palette is very suited to beginners, to novices, to intermediate skills and to experts because of the level of pigmentation, which probably was something that was considered by Emily, which is great and shows that she does consider everyone, not just made the palette for her own needs or wants, as it were. So let's get into the shadows. I apologise now, this is probably going to be a long video, and if I remember I will try and put timestamps below for each of the sections. So here are all of the shades. You have a nice selection of a few nudie brown colours over here, a few pops of purples, a few greens, and a few warm shades with sort of orange, dark pinks, berries and things like that. And to me this has got quite a lot of colour in it, but I somehow didn't find it intimidating. I do have the Jaclyn Hill palette, and the first time I opened that I was very intimidated and didn't know where to begin, and I don't know whether the fact that I've had practice with that made this seem less intimidating, but I found this more easy to look at and just think, right, these are the looks that I want to do. What I will do is I'll go through each shade and do a little swatch of it for you. So the first shade we have here is called The Cream, which is a matte white shade. This is definitely one of the least pigmented shades in the palette, but with it being a creamy white colour, I'm not surprised. It is a very subtle shade. This can just be used as a brow bone highlight, which is a step in my eyeshadow look that you always forget to do, but it is a really nice shade for that, just to give a whitewash effect, even your skin tone in that respect. The next shade here is Hobby, which is a cool tone brown shade. This is another one that isn't one of the most pigmented in the palette, but I say it's a nice cool tone brown. And this is a really nice transition or crease shade. Next on the top row we then have Prayer, which is a pinky brown toned, slightly on the warm side of things, which is a really nice shade. I think this might be one of my favourite mattes. Then we come to the first of our shimmers, and that is Grateful, which is a kind of lime green shimmer shade, and this one is really pretty, especially as an inner corner highlight, and it's what is on the look on my eyes right now. It has, I would say, sort of bright gold undertones, if that makes sense, mixed in with a sort of lime green, so it's a really nice shade. Definitely a shade that I do not have in my collection. Then we have Good Vibes, a orangey coppery red shimmer shade. This is one that I probably do already have in my collection, whether it's in my Naked Heat palette or in the Jaclyn Hill palette, but it's nice to have different levels of pigmentation for this shade, plus it is a really nice shade. Then on the last one on the top row we have Side Hustle, which is a kind of khaki green shimmer shade. And again, this is a really nice shade, and I am into my greens quite a bit at the moment, and I find this is a subtle green shimmer, which I like. It's not over the top, and I have this next to the Grateful shade in the middle of my eyelid, and it does blend really beautifully with the Grateful shade to kind of create an ombre type effect. Onto the second row we have Midwest, which is a, I would say, orangey cool tone brownish shade, and this to me is probably the perfect crease shade, and is the one that I do tend to reach for the most for my crease. If I'm not reaching for Prayer, I'm reaching for Midwest, and from a lot of looks videos online that I've watched, that does tend to be the go-to first shade to hit, because it is kind of the perfect in-between. Then we have Dues Paid, which is a more rich brown shade. And that is a shade that is dark enough to put in the outer corner, but also dark enough to deepen a crease, so it's quite a versatile shade, I think. Then we have Eve Rose, which is named after Emily's daughter. And this is a really nice pearlescent pale pink. This one does take a little bit of work to get onto the eyelid. You do have to dig quite deeply into it to get payoff on your lid, which it's not necessarily a bad thing. It is just quite subtle, and you do have to put quite a few layers on to get it to show up, in my opinion. Then we have Belle Violet, which is a really nice lilac-y shimmer shade. And this again is definitely something I don't have in my collection, and when I created my purple look, which I will show you later on in the video, I really enjoyed wearing that shade. I think it looked really nice, and I do want to incorporate that in a lot more looks. Then we have the shade Capricorn, which is a dark brown shimmer shade. And this reminds me of one of the very end shades in the Naked Heat palette, so again it is one I probably do already have in my collection, but that shade in the Naked Heat is my favourite shade or one of my favourite shades, so definitely think that's a really nice colour. Then we have Pi-Fi, which is a dark plum colour. And again, that is really nice for outer corner. And you probably could put that in your crease as well. And I've also used that under my lash line to create a more smoky look. Onto the third row down, we have Oh Heavens, which is a pearlescent white creamy shade. This is another one that's quite good for brow bone highlight, but it's not, again, overly pigmented, but that's probably because I have paler skin. So someone with a deeper skin tone, I think that shade would look lovely on because it would really highlight the brow bone. Next to that we have Love Tons, which is a kind of cranberry red, I would say. This one does swatch slightly patchy, but it doesn't go on the eyes patchy at all. It goes on really well, but they do say not always to rely on a swatch, but that is a really nice shade that I've used to deepen the crease and in the outer corner as well. We have the shade Pizzazz, which I think is probably one of my favourite shimmer shades in the palette. This is a mauvey pinky purpley shimmer, and this can be used to create a more neutral purpley look rather than using the brightness of Belle Violet. Really nice shade, goes on really well, and can be put on with just a couple of swipes to create a quite subtle look, or it can be packed on for a really bright shimmer, which I really like. Next to that we have the shade Family, which is a more deep purple. Again, this is another one that does swatch quite patchy, but isn't too patchy when you put it on the eyes. I do find that it creases slightly on my eyelid wrinkles, so you do have to kind of, or in my case, I do have to pat it in between the wrinkles, but it's not patchy, it's just, it separates a bit there, whereas some of the others blend a bit more into those wrinkles, which I've only recently found I have. Next to that is the shade Top Story, and this is a really nice warm gold shade. I haven't reached for this one an awful lot, and that's only because I do have different variations of gold shimmers in a lot of the other palettes that I do own. So to me it wasn't new, so I've not found myself reaching for it a lot because I wanted to try the more unique shades, but it's a really pretty gold. I think it was probably one of the longest lasting shimmers out of the whole palette, but I know it's stupid to say, but the gold in here to me was boring because of all the other beautiful shimmers that were there, but still a great shade. Then we have Apartment, which is a deep brown matte shade, and this one blends beautifully on the outer corner. It creates a really nice smoky look. On the bottom here we have Cupcake, which is a light pink shimmer shade, slightly peachy looking as well. This is a really pretty shade for inner corner. To be honest, I did end up taking this quite far into my eye. It was originally supposed to be just an inner corner highlight, but I did take it to probably halfway over my lid because it's a really nice shade and is subtle with it being a lighter shade, but also looks really nice. That we have Laugh Cry. This is a kind of brighter orangey coral. This is another one that again doesn't swatch the best, but goes really nice on the eyes. I've used this in the crease, the outer corner and all over the lid, and it looks really nice in all places, and to me is something I definitely don't have in my collection. Then we have the shade Chia, which is a darker red shade. And this one is also a very nice outer corner, can be to deepen your crease as well. And this one swatches really nice and it looks really nice on the eyes and is so easy to work with. Because I've been wiping these swatches off between, I've left a lovely wet patch in Chia, which will hopefully dry out. Next to Chia we have the shade Heartbeat. I have issues with this shade. It is a really pretty shade. It is a kind of coppery, reddy, slightly purple looking shade. And I think it swatches completely different than it looks in the pan. But I don't know if it's just mine, but I think the shadow might have been pressed too hard because I can't get this to go on my eyelid, which is really weird because I can get it to swatch on the back of my hand, but no matter if I go in with a brush, a dry brush, a wet brush and my finger, as soon as I start to swipe it or pat it or anything on my eyelid, I don't seem to get any pigmentation, just a slight glitter after effect, which I just find is so strange. And I think if you look at the pan, it does look slightly shiny and a bit odd, in my opinion. I don't know if it's just my palette or that's the way this one is, but I was disappointed because this was one of the shades that I was drawn to, but I probably do have something similar in my Naked Heat if I'm desperate for it. Next to that is another matte shade, and this is Corduroy, which is a really nice deep green shade. This doesn't swatch the best, as I've found that most dark mattes don't, but this goes on really nice. This is another one though that does kind of catch in my eyelid wrinkles, so you do have to put it in between them kind of thing, but it blends really nicely and it can be shaded out to just light green sort of haze, as it were, because one of the looks I did, which I didn't document, I had it come more up into my brow bone. I don't tend to go high really with my eyeshadow shades apart from the brow bone lighter shade highlight, but dark shades I'm not brave enough to do a full-blown smoky eye. It was really nice to just go with such a light hand and blend it out to create a really smoky look. Final shade here is called Dark and Early, and this is a matte black, and this is a really nice matte black. As you can see, it's not really patchy in the swatch and it's not really patchy on the eyes either, and from blacks that I've tried in other palettes, that is no mean feat to be able to create a black that isn't patchy and does blend really nice, and I think that she's hit the nail on the head with this one. I don't overly reach for blacks if I'm honest, but from the few times I've tried it, it has kind of made me want to incorporate black in a few more different looks, which is great. So that is all 24 shades. On to the looks that I created, and over the course of a week I did 6 looks altogether. The first one I didn't even think to take a before photo, I just took an after one when I got home from work. So for the first 3 looks I didn't wear eye primer. I'm really bad at remembering to wear eye primer, so automatically the first day tried the palette without, then thought I would try it a few days without primer and then would try with primer, because I think if I remember rightly, Emily did suggest you use primer and it does make a difference. Look 1 included the shades Prayer, Love Tons and Good Vibes. This was a warm toned look which had the oranges and pinks and copper shades in it and was a really nice neutral look. It went on really well, blended really well. I would show you a picture if I could. I wore this for 10 hours and I will put the photo up of what it looked like after 10 hours. As you can see, the matte is pretty much completely gone. You can just see some darkness in my eyes, but you can't see the actual colour of the mattes that were there. There's a tiny bit of the shimmer left in the inner corner and I have this weird line of shimmer in my crease. That is 10 hours wear for a drugstore palette, so I've tried worse where there's been nothing left at all, but again, no primer. Look 2 included Family, Pi-Fi, Zaz and Belle Violet. This one I only had on for 5 hours. And after the 5 hours there's still a bit of the inner corner left and the mattes around the edge are a little bit patchy, but they are still kind of there. For look 3, again no primer, and this one included Dues Paid, Midwest, Apartment and Capricorn. This one I had on for around 11.5 hours, so quite a long day, and as you can see it kind of looks a bit similar to look 1. In that there's just a little bit of the shimmer shade left in the inner corner. There's also that shimmer crease line and a bit of darkness where the mattes once were. For look 4, I started using primer and you can see a difference, which you'll see in a second. Look 4 included Midwest, Laugh Cry, Good Vibes and Cheer. This one I actually did 2 check-ins with. The first check-in was at 12 hours and because of how much was still intact after 12 hours, I decided to leave it on for a further 4 hours. So I did another check-in at 16 hours. This is the 12-hour check-in. And as you can see, the mattes are still hanging in on this look, so that looks like they really need the primer to kind of stay on your eye. The inner corner is still intact and a little bit more across the lid. So overall, it still looks pretty good, considering it's been on my eyes for 12 hours. At 16 hours, there's a little bit of the inner corner left, and you can still slightly see a bit of the matte in the crease. To me, I think this looks better than 5 hours with look 2 with no primer, and this is 16 hours later. So that was when I learned definitely need a primer. Look 5, again, learnt my lesson and used primer. This look included Prayer, Midwest, Dues Paid. This is where I tried the shade Heartbeat and I just could not get it to show on my lid. So I ended up going in with Pizzazz and Cupcake instead. This one I had on for 12 hours. And as you can see, most of the shimmer on the inner part of the lid is still there, and there's just some slight fading on the matte, so still looking pretty good. And finally, look 6 is what I have on my eyes now. So I did this look this morning and took a picture, which I'll put up now. I then went out for 10 hours and this eyeshadow look got a battering because I've been out for the day with my family and we went to a seaside town called Blackpool, which is about an hour north of where we are, and the weather there today was very windy and very rainy, so my eyeshadow did get a battering, and when I come home it didn't look as bad as I thought it would. So this is a picture of what it looked like after the 10 hours, so say not too bad at all. There was a bit more glitter fallout from the shimmer shade than has been on the previous shimmers. There was a bit of glitter up in here, but the matte green hung in pretty well, and the light and darker green shimmers still hung in pretty well as well. The darker one was the one that faded first. So overall, I am pretty impressed with this palette for the price. I say it's not got the quality of a high-end palette, but I do think it is an amazing palette for the price, and I'm definitely going to find myself reaching for this a lot, maybe even over my Jaclyn Hill palette. I love the fact as well that it's got so many shades that are unique to my collection. It's got a great colour story to it, and I just find when I open it I'm inspired to create a look, and even though I've already created 6 looks, I think there's still many more in this for me to create that are completely different from ones I've done previously. The only thing is you definitely do need to wear primer with it. That's not a major issue, I already have primer, and if anything this will make me remember to wear it because I'm constantly forgetting. The one that I used is the Milani primer, which you can get for £7 or £8. This is probably the best Makeup Revolution palette that I've tried with regards to longevity and blendability, and I think the favourite looks that I created is this green one that I have on now, and then the purpley coloured one as well. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and would definitely recommend grabbing this palette if you haven't already, because it is a great palette, and hats off to Emily for producing it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks!